I am Dorothy Edwards. I'm an advocate, substance abuse counselor, case manager, and a member of the board of directors at CSH. Thank you. I am also a proud graduate of the inaugural Speak Up Advocates program in Los Angeles. And through the generous support, through the generous support of the Hilton Foundation, CSH staff brings supportive housing residents together for CSH Speak Up, and encourages us, gives us the confidence, support, and love that helps us share the stories of our lives. Because of this coaching, we become the strongest voices possible for supportive housing and then coaches ourselves. Sometimes when we talk about homelessness, we get lost in numbers. CSH Speak Up residents are the faces behind those numbers, and our voices are being heard because of CSH and the Hilton Foundation. Heard in city councils, corporate boardrooms, state houses, and halls of power in Washington, D.C. One of my best friends, Vikki Vickers, is here this evening to speak with us. She's a Speak Up graduate also, and Vikki has really taken our stories to the next level. She challenges all of us to go higher. She is more than passionate, she is strong and brave. Becoming a coach herself, she has carried the message of impact of supportive housing far beyond our traditional advocacy. Vikki is such a force of supportive housing for homeless people. She was asked by the U.S. Senate Select Committee on Mental Illness to share her views on how law enforcement should interact with those in homelessness. She spoke to first-year medical students at USC Keck on interaction with homeless people and who enter emergency care. She's even stood on a stage in a crowded nightclub to tell her story and share the power of supportive housing, where you could hear a pin drop. If anyone ever doubts that supportive housing changes lives, they just need to spend a few minutes with Vikki and they will be convinced it works. At this time, I am honored to introduce to you my fellow CSH Speak Up graduate and friend, Vikki Vickers.
Hi. Can you hear me? Okay, good. Okay, as Dorothy said, I am Vikki. My real name is Vikki Ann Vickers, and that's not a joke. I have schizophrenia. I always ask people, because of the stigma I carry with my illness, please don't be afraid of me. I have great medication now, and I've been stable for about 3 years. I've never been able to conquer the stigma of schizophrenia, especially, in the last year with all the police problems with people who are mentally ill, but I'll never stop trying to conquer it. Because of my illness, I was homeless for 4.5 years. I had grown paranoid, believing my medication was poisoning me, so I stopped taking it. As with most people who have schizophrenia, the delusions and the hallucinations started soon after my last dose. In my hallucinations, I saw, heard, and felt enemy armies invading America. In my mind, they were going to kill me and anyone I was close to, so I cut off all contact with anyone I had ever known, and I ran. By some universal miracle, I found some hard-drinking Vietnam vets behind an old library in Santa Monica, California. They knew that I was out of my mind crazy, but they gave me a place next to them anyways and kind of looked out for me to the best of their ability. It was there next to them that I lived for the next 4.5 years. Most days up by 5 a.m., so not to be asked to leave, or worse, be arrested. Thankfully, I don't remember most of those years. I seem to be able to remember the basics: staring at walls, screaming at the enemies only I heard and saw, and kindness when kindness happened. I was rescued, in fact, by a kind stranger who, with gentle persistence over a year's time, finally persuaded me to go to Ocean Park Community Center for medical treatment. I was very sick by that time. I had skin infections all over my body from not being clean, and I had a bronchitis that was on the verge of pneumonia. He finally talked me into taking some bus tokens, and I went. First, I saw the doctor there. He prescribed antibiotics, which was a huge red flag to me. I almost wanted to run. But he was so kind, I trusted him enough to at least try the medication that would stop the cough because I couldn't breathe anymore. Over the next 2 months, I was on 4 cycles of antibiotics, and he and I developed a relationship. He and an emergency caseworker named Brian that worked at Ocean Park Community Center made an appointment for me with my incredible psychiatrist, Dr. Schwang, who I still see once a month to this day. He started me on a new class of antipsychotics that don't have the same side effects as old antipsychotics that I was terrified of taking because I knew they were poisoning me. Any of you have had people in your life who've been on old classes of antipsychotics, you know the side effects that they cause. So I finally started taking them, and within 2 weeks, I started coming out of the psychosis that I'd been in for 5 years. Next, because that was working, I was given an emergency bed at Daybreak for Women. From there, I went to the transitional side for 8.5 months, at this incredible place. And finally, I was given permanent supportive housing at the Downtown Women's Center. That was 3.5 years ago. Now, all of that said, you know at least a little about me before permanent supportive housing. For the next minute, I'd like to tell you about what my life is like now. I'm an advocate for the homeless through CSH, and I'm a survivor of homelessness. I speak to senators, congresspeople, DAs, philanthropist groups, police departments, and anyone else who will listen and help in any way in stopping the crisis of homelessness. I am not a person who is ashamed to ask for funds. Funds are needed. So, in fact, I was one of the lucky advocates in my group in Los Angeles to be asked to speak to Supervisor Sheila Kuehl's panel on the issues of homelessness and a $100 million fund. My story, she said, gave her a clear understanding of mental illness, homelessness, and what the success of permanent supportive housing looks like. I, of course, asked her for more funds for more housing, and the vote passed. We won $1 million by the year 2020 for the homeless. I'm now an actual part of history. I also spoke to Senator Jim Beal and Senator Holly Mitchell about something that's so incredibly important to me. If you notice, when I talk, I move my hands. It's called tachycardia, and it goes along with my schizophrenia and the medications I take that give me these kinds of side effects that are so often misinterpreted by police as aggressive movements by someone with mental illness. And people have been shot over this by the police. So it was important for me to go to this panel to discuss how the police approach and perceive people who are mentally ill, especially homeless mentally ill. Well, after I told her, my community's concerns and how afraid we are of any interaction at all with the police, they listened, And with that, 2 weeks later, funded the police departments and made it mandatory that they have 40 hours of less harm reduction training and awareness training on how to approach the mentally ill per police officer. So now it's mandatory at the LAPD. Though by far my favorite speaking engagement to date was this group of kids, the Big Citizen Hub. They're 12 to 16-year-olds, and they go out in the community, they find things to do that they can get involved in safely to make the world a better place, and it's as simple as that. You know, I would never expect these children to be even interested in homelessness at all. But their questions were not only caring and kind, they were meaningful. They really wanted answers on how they could possibly help. And honestly, if those kids at that age are already that involved emotionally, their generation very well may be the ones that make homelessness a thing of the past. You know, I'm only an example of the success supportive housing is. I live with 46 other women that are all a success. You know, we at the Downtown Women's Center, we have a 99% rate of retaining housing. So, you know, what I believe that helps that happen is that first crucial year. The support, the wraparound service, and helping someone get to their appointments, get medical help, get dental help, get psychiatric help, which is always a big one for somebody who's lived the trauma of being homeless. I was lonely and scared and, well, from what my doctors say, within a year, probably dead woman who was homeless out there. And, you know, it's because of you and people like you, lives are saved. Every one of you actually care, and I learned this at the first meeting where I met Ann English. It was a charrette. And some of the people were talking about, you know, all the schooling they go through. And I was homeless, but I'm not stupid. I know the wage is not high for what you do in social work. You know, and so I kind of, you know, thought about that, and I said, so if they're not making money and they're working 16 hours a day, and they're trying to come up with all of these solutions together, I said, then there's only one thing left. They really, really do care, because homeless people have a different idea if you haven't had the opportunity that I did to sit and talk to you people. You know, and I just want to say thank you. Thank you, Ann English. Your invitation to become a CSH advocate took me from who I was to who I am today. I remember that first 6 months when I didn't want to say anything or move to, you know, be noticed. You truly bring out the best in people, and I am so happy to know you. To the new advocates here in Chicago, I heard one of them speak today in one of the sessions. I just want to tell you, don't be afraid. Say yes to every invitation. Your story and the success you will be can change the entire world. You are smart, beautiful, strong, and worthy. Thank you, CSH.